rainwater catching system, you know, gutters to catch rainwater on your tunnel. When we initially started doing this with my cousins for produce, you could get a tunnel set up, like they would come out and put it up for you with like the whole rain catching system, gutters, tanks, everything for that $10,000. Now you can not even get a full, unless you're going to do a smaller tunnel. A 30 by 96 tunnel is at least $10,000 if you buy it new from most places. So but it still will get you a tunnel. And if you are wanting to grow flowers in a farming perspective and really expand your business, it's amazing how quickly my business grew once I just got that one tunnel. And like I said, it's 30 by 96. We did put it up ourselves. We made some adjustments and things like that. And I'll talk about things. I'm not really going to talk about how to build your tunnel because that's my husband's department and my dad's. But there are different parts of the tunnel that I have found that I have opinions about. So, but let's go ahead and get started. Just remember, they reminded me to keep your questions till the end for the recording, so I'll remind you guys. Okay, so I kind of wanted to differentiate between the high tunnel and low tunnels. High tunnel, you can walk in, you can get your equipment in. A low tunnel is more like how we talked about. If you're growing these, if you're getting started, this is something you can do in your backyard. It's usually plastic still, and I feel like in the farming world, a lot of these terms kind of get jumbled up and mixed up. But a high tunnel is not usually heated. It's usually just temperature controlled by cover. That's what's controlling your temperature. So you're going to hold in soil, heat, and you're protecting from the elements. So a low tunnel can do that, but it's just not as large of a space, and it's a lot harder to control the elements with it. But it can definitely be done. Okay, so the season extension part of it, for flowers, you will have flowers about 2 months earlier than flowers that in the field. So it gives you about a 2-month space that you can start selling flowers before all the other flower farmers in your area. Most of the florists that I sell to, their biggest months are April, May. And so the tunnel allows me to have most of my flowers like end of March, April. I'm pretty much done for Mother's Day. I pretty much just shut down after Mother's Day now. It just gets too hot and I don't want to. So it gives you 2 months in the spring and about a month in the fall that will protect you from like early frost and stuff. So you can do like dahlias or things like that. But most of what we're going to talk about growing in the tunnel is like the hardy annuals that we talked about this morning. All of them, they're, I'm shouting at you when that shuts off. The stem length, yeah, it's plenty warm in here. I didn't know how to do it, but we were cold this morning, and so I went and put on a heavy sweater, and then we came back and the heater's working. But yeah, so it just makes it easier. I will say that. You're protected from wind. It's amazing. We just built my second tunnel, but I've had it planted for a month or so, the plants in the ground, and just within a week of getting that tunnel, them protected from the wind and everything, they just have flourished. It's amazing what just putting a little piece of plastic and protecting them will do. So the wind protection is a big one. Even rain, like hard rains in the spring, when all of your flowers are blooming, if you get a really hard rain, it's going to be a lot of your flowers will be damaged or on the ground. But I think for us, wind and cold is the biggest thing. The wind, we don't realize how much the wind affects the plants. So another pro that I have on here is you go on like wholesale websites for wholesale flowers, like snapdragons, if they're 2 feet, they're a price. If they're 3 foot, they're like a full dollar more a lot of times. Because some of their events they need longer stems, and so they can pick and choose. But yes, stem length is a huge one. I have never grown foxglove this tall outside. I'm sure in other places you probably can, but like my butterfly ranunculus are like 3 foot tall. They're huge. So giving you that stem length is great. The tunnel also, I feel like, allows you to use the space a little more intensively, especially with hardy annuals. You want to use the space more intensively because it's kind of expensive real estate. You put up this tunnel, you want to maximize the amount of flowers that you can get out of there. So I did a little bit of math. I do this pretty much for every flower, just to kind of help you see like the returns that you can get from flowers that you're growing in a tunnel. So in Lynn Wazinski's books, The Flower Farmer, she talks about how inside a tunnel, her goal is to profit $8 a square foot. So that, I have not noticed that actually before I started doing this class. So I started doing some math for some of the ones that I do a lot of. So snapdragons, we talked about how I plant 3 per square, so that's 6, there's 18, no that's 12, right? I'm just lost, there's 3, 6, no that's 12. I even wrote this down. Okay, so there's 12 plants per square foot. Each plug, including the shipping, this is me buying them in, is 33 cents. The least amount that I've ever charged for a snapdragon is $1.50 a stem. So even, that doesn't count the second cutting that I'm gonna get off of them. That's $18. So basically you're profiting $14 from that square foot in your tunnel. And I plant a whole 3-foot bed in my tunnel, which is, I usually fit, let's see, it's 12, about 2,500 snapdragons in there. So I did the math, I had to write all this down. An entire row, you can profit about $3,000, $3,500. That's not including if I get that second flush, which we usually do. Delphinium is another one that we talked about, the Belladonna series. It's kind of that more airy and it's blue. It's a really good blue. Florists love blue, but it can be hard because a lot of blue is a lot more purple than what you're expecting. So that light blue color, you can get 4 Delphinium plants per square foot. The least I've ever charged is $1.25 a stem, and I usually get at least 4 or 5 stems per plant, usually more than that. So that's about $20. Plugs cost $5, so the whole row is probably about $1,200. If that was kind of fast, but that just kind of shows you that it's worth the investment if you have a place to put it. The cost of stems, you can definitely get tall snapdragons and some tall things out in the field, but to me it's a lot more labor intensive that way, and the longer you do it, the more you start calculating your time, like how much time you are putting into this. So that's just something to keep in mind, but to me it's a major pro of a tunnel. You can fit a lot into a small space, but you can do that outside, but it's a lot harder. Okay, so the cons is if you don't have a place to put it, for one thing, but you have to purchase the tunnel, and it's expensive, like we talked about. So you either have to pay someone to come build your tunnel for you, if you're not handy, luckily I have a very great support system. My husband is very handy. Like, we farm, large farming, so my dad and husband, and actually Robin and Lisa that are doing the cooking, him and his boys come in, they put up my tunnel. But that's the biggest con for me, is like, it's a lot of money up front, so you have to really set that money aside, and then having someone to put it up for you, and being prepared for the elements. I put airflow on here because it can be challenging to get enough airflow to keep powdery mildew is a big problem, but we don't have that problem because it's very windy, like, all the time. So, but the airflow can also be a con, because what is it, in March this last year we had, it was like 40, 50 miles per hour winds it was unbelievable. Somehow my tunnels are still standing, but yeah, so this is actually the second tunnel we just put up. I purchased this from a marijuana grow that got busted, and if you're not from this area, Oklahoma there was a huge boom because of some laws they changed, and there were marijuana farms everywhere. But they have, in the last year or so, been shutting a lot of them down. So they all have these tunnels. This one had never been put up, they told us. Came with the plastic and everything for $500.
Wow.
Yeah. It was
Awesome.
It sounded great at the time. No, it was good, but it was an experience to get it put together, because it is solid. It is solid steel. Usually I get worried about, like, the snow coming in and stuff. They're at home supporting my tunnel that I've had for a while. We put boards and stuff up. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but this one, I'm not worried about it at all. It's so solid. So there are ways you can get cheaper tunnels, but you've got to be crafty. Okay, so things to consider when you are thinking about building a tunnel and starting to grow. Location, the size, weed prevention, ventilation, irrigation, and what are you going to grow in your tunnel. So we're going to talk about a little bit about all of these. So location, we talked about this a little bit this morning. Assessing where you're going to put it. Does it drain well? If you get a bunch of rain, even an area that doesn't hold water, if you put a tunnel there and all that water coming off the roof on the sides, you've got to have somewhere for that water to go, not inside your tunnel. Because one of the pros to a tunnel is you can control how much water your plants are getting. And if my problem here, if this corner stays so saturated, but the whole other 60 feet of this row, I have no way to water it, because all my irrigation starts here, so I end up like hand watering that end. So just assessing how your water is going to drain, the soil of where you would put it, you want it to be very healthy. I know classes about soil they've got going on here, so we won't talk about that too much, but you're going to really use this space intensively, so you want to make sure you're starting on good ground. Let's see. So the other consideration is, do you have water close by to be able to irrigate with? That can be a problem for us, because a lot of times high tunnels are a structure that you're not going to have electricity and stuff, so you're not really considering those things, and you may just set it out in the field. Well, then your house is up here, and you've got like 200 feet of hose running to your tunnel. So that's another thing to consider, where your water comes from. And then electricity is one that I have recently been considering, just with the weather. My plants are so big this year in the tunnel, because it's been so warm, that I can't really cover them. Like, my snapdragons are already like tall. So they're setting up heaters, but then we had to go buy a bunch of propane tanks to be able to, instead of, so it's just like things like that to think about, maybe for the future. But and fans, sometimes people will put a fan in them. I have never put a fan I run one in my greenhouse, that's the only ventilation, but we just have so much wind. But I know a lot of people will use fans in them. Okay, the next one, how big? How big should you go? Because you can really do any size that you want. So some things to consider. If you already have a space that you're growing in, like will it cover that space? But what are you capable of maintaining? I'm pretty good at biting off more than I can chew and then going into survival mode. But like I said, I have a 30 by 96 tunnel. That for the last few years has been perfect for me. It's enough. It's, like I said, amazing how many flowers you can grow in there. Last year I started using one of my cousin's Farmer's Friend tunnels that eventually got blown away. But I realized that I could manage another tunnel. So that's why we built another tunnel. But just something to consider. And what equipment do you plan on using inside the tunnel? So that's when you're thinking about building it. Like my doors are big enough that I can get my tractor down in there with the brush hog and mow everything down at one time. I don't do a lot of tilling anymore, but if I need to, I can get my tractor tiller in there, things like that. So the other thing is just thinking about what you want to grow. That's kind of going to depict how big you want it to be and who you're selling to, your market. So all this kind of ties in to determining how big you want it to be. Okay, so weed prevention, something to plan ahead for instead of like trying to keep up with it. In my tunnel, I don't use the landscape fabric because it just gets too hot in the spring. It gets hot really fast, even if the plants are big. The only place I use it is in the pathways. I didn't do that the first few years, but I really fought it, and it works really well. I just have that, we just put a few staples. It gives you a really nice pathway. This sounds ridiculous, but we actually go through and sweep them. So when I process flowers, and when I'm picking a lot, some of them I do process inside, but like stripping leaves and stuff, I'll just drop them, and then when I'm done, I just run through with the push broom just to prevent like disease and things spreading, all of that. So we just get rid of all that, and it keeps things a lot tidier. And if it's really muddy, I feel like it's helpful to have that as well. But you can definitely use landscape fabric that you've burned holes in. There is one now that's white that they say is supposed to be better for sun, like it doesn't get as hot, obviously, because it's not black. I have not personally tried that, but
we have some.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, we use it. And
yeah,
we like it a lot.
Okay.
It doesn't get as hot. I know some farmers in Oklahoma that are using it for their ranunculus this year. So we'll see how it goes. I guess why it's like that, a reason is because the sun can like bounce off the black and go up underneath and burn the leaves.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
And so,
well, I'll have to report back. Like I said, I've been in this tunnel for a long enough time that I don't have a lot of weed pressure. In the summer, I do for sure, but I usually, at this point, I don't grow a lot of summer stuff. It gets way too hot in the tunnel. There's really not a lot that you can, if you're in a cooler climate, for sure you could use it for something in the summer. You could really use it to, if you are in a cooler climate, you could grow a lot of the summer stuff so that they actually bloom in time for you if you have a short growing period, because it would give you that extension in the fall. Okay, ventilation. Most of what ours is just passive airflow. This is the Farmer's Friend tunnel that I used for a while. I learned a lot of things using this versus my high tunnel with curtains that roll down. This is my tip for if you are looking at building a tunnel. Make sure your doors are really large and that they will stay open. And the other thing is make sure your curtains roll down. And
if you're just getting started, and the Farmer's Friend tunnels are really, really great. They're easy to put together. You can really make it however big you want it, and they're a little bit smaller to start off with. But you raise the sides up, and for one thing, it's just harder than the roll curtain. But in our winds, I would go down there, and they would all be on the ground again. Like, just the whipping of the wind makes it, even with the clip things they have, it would somehow pop over the clip, and then it would have a hole in the plastic because it went through the clip. So that's just, if you're in a windy area like us, I tell everyone, make sure your curtains roll down. I actually knew a flower farmer in Oklahoma that she built the same tunnel I did, but we engineered the curtains to go down, unlike they came, and she eventually tore it down because her plants just kept burning up. She could not keep the curtains up. That's actually, yeah, we learned that we have, this is a side note, my family farms, and we have about 15,000 laying hens. We have like huge 400-foot houses that they all just kind of run around and scratch and peck, and we have curtains on the side, and they go down. And my dad, when we were built, that's why we did it, because he was like, your curtains have to go down for the wind. So that's my biggest, I hope, tip for the day. And making sure your doors are large enough, because on days like today, I just open the doors instead of worrying about the curtains and everything else. And then how are you going to irrigate? You can see in this picture, I didn't have water down here yet. My husband is on the volunteer fire department for Slick, Oklahoma, and we actually purchased one of their old trucks, and that's how I water.
Wow.
We just use the fire truck, but it's not ideal because it's a bit high pressure. And, but you can really move a lot of water with the fire truck, I'll tell you that. Ideally, you're going to set up drip tape, but when your seedlings are getting established, the tunnel, I feel like, even though they're protected by the wind, sometimes it can be harder to keep them watered, saturated really well. So I, a lot of times, will run drip and all overhead water when they're little. And I'm really excited to try out that Sumi soaker that I talked about this morning, because it looks perfect for this. So just, that's also something to consider, how if you don't know how to set up the whole drip irrigation system, that can be a little bit complicated. But once you get it, have all the pieces, it's great to have. Okay, snow. This is how this was last year actually. This might be, no, I think it was last year. Last fall, I decided to leave the shade cloth on my tunnel because the bows up here had worn the plastic and there was big holes. And I was like, well, I'll just leave the shade cloth and it'll keep it, well, you know what snow does? We got like 3 inches of snow, and it just, even with the brooms trying to sweep it off the top, you could not get it off that shade cloth. So we eventually resorted to just putting heaters in there. We scraped as good as we could everything off. And we put heaters, and then we put boards to support the trusses. This is what my husband and my dad are at home doing right now. Because snow is really heavy, and these tunnels are not built to withstand anything like that. This pipe is very light, it's very thin. Unlike this, like I was saying, this tunnel that we just built, I mean, one pipe from this tunnel, I could not pick it up by myself. It's so heavy. So I'm pretty excited not to stress about it in the snow. As long as the plastic will hold up for me. But yes, it's a big problem in places that get a lot of snow. The whole tunnel will just collapse. So, yes.
Mary, you know this, but just I used to garden in northern time before I came to Oklahoma. If we get as much snow as they're expecting, where you're at, it will come off the side, but it will collapse you from the
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That actually happened when I just grew in low tunnels. it wasn't hard to keep the snow off, but I would like just brush it off to the sides, and then it collapsed all of my plastic in on the side. And it wasn't terrible because our snow melts pretty fast, and it wasn't like excessive amounts, but I had to shovel it all off the, but yeah, it just, because, you know, it's all collecting right there, and then you've got walls of snow, and it will collapse on the sides. But tunnels, I think snow is the most tricky part of growing in a tunnel in the winter. But yeah, we run these through propane heaters when it's like that, and honestly what this next cold snap we're gonna have, we'll run them because I can't really cover my plants, so we'll see how it goes. Let's see. Oh, one thing I was gonna say that I didn't put on here that can be a little bit challenging is pest control in a tunnel, because you're creating this little microclimate and you are not having the whole hard cold winter. We have a lot of birds around us, and they actually come in my tunnel. Birds are the best for like caterpillars and worms and stuff. But the main problem I have is aphids, and I can tell, I maybe sprayed one time. I released ladybugs, but my first year I released ladybugs, and they come back every year. I've grown, the last few years we grew the red clover, and it just like attracts them. And then they get on your flowers and they eat all the aphids and clean them up. It's not messy, it's they work really well. And they, huh?
What's the red?
The ladybugs, yeah. And there's a lot of discussion about like introducing ladybugs that are not, but these are actually ladybugs. It can be a little, I don't know, they're super effective, and I'm not spraying chemicals, so that's my go-to for aphids. And usually I don't have any problems with aphids until it starts warming up, and that's when ladybugs start coming because they need something to eat. Okay. What flowers to grow in a tunnel? This is a little bit dependent on what your market is. So if you're doing market bouquets, it might be just slightly different. I probably wouldn't grow delphinium if I was just doing market bouquets. Foxglove would be another one that's kind of iffy because it's so hard to hydrate. For sure, snapdragons. For sure, ranunculus. Sweet pea is another one that's kind of, but if you can get good sweet peas, market customers love them, florists love them, you'll love them. Have you guys ever experienced sweet peas in real life? I had never, and they smell so good. And people just love them because it's really more of a Pacific Northwest thing, and so it's really just about variety, but it's very dependent on your market. Another one, if you're doing market bouquets, would be dianthus, the sweet william we talked about, and the little carnations. I'm trying to think what else, but really snapdragons and especially ranunculus are our top sellers. Poppies, so I grow all my poppies in a tunnel as well. I do not recommend growing poppies if you're just doing market bouquets. They just are a little more finicky for your customer, although I still love them. But if you're growing for florist sales, poppies are a really big seller. Like we talked about how they're super hardy, but they get damaged really easily. So if they get rained on or anything like that, it will damage your whole flower, and everything just starts blooming earlier in a tunnel, so you'll have earlier flowers. Okay, so if you're wanting to grow in a tunnel, I just want to kind of reiterate that having a plan is important. Do you have shade cloth? Because if you're anywhere in this area, we will all of a sudden have 80-degree days in the spring. And you need to be ready to get your shade cloth on. Even if you're doing low tunnels, like you can put shade cloth on those low tunnels and it will extend the life of your flowers. Having a plan for your water and then when it gets windy. Those are the big things. And if it's gonna snow, that's a big thing too. Okay, so when to plant in the tunnel. This is still basically the same for me. We still plant, you can do fall planting or early spring plantings for hardy annuals. I'm really just talking about hardy annuals in this class. Most of the summer stuff, it's just too hot for us, but if you're interested in that, I'm happy to talk to you about that too. But it's really dependent on your growing area. So I pretty much just plant everything in the fall, and I do like another succession of snapdragons in the spring, but we really heat up fast, and I've just really found it's not worth to do that succession in the spring. So they usually say 6 to 8 weeks before your first frost date. I generally say don't plant anything until you've had your first killing frost. Because everyone that I've talked to, you'll have a really hard frost and then it warms up again for a while. So you're gonna have days, I know that there are areas that it gets cold and it stays cold, but if you're growing in a tunnel, it should protect you from that cold. So I generally say just wait till after your first killing frost, which for us is usually like the end of October or so. And so I usually start planting things the beginning of November. But it is a little, and I looked for like specific things like dates and temperatures and all these things for this class, and it's just not really there. It's really a learning curve that you just kind of have to experiment with. Like I said, the soil temp needs to be cool, like 60 degrees-ish, but I plant before my soil temp is 60, as long as I'm not direct seeding. Okay, so we talked about protecting your plants outside of the tunnel this morning, like hardy annuals if you're just growing them for yourself or in a smaller garden. Inside a tunnel, you still have to protect them. We talked about snow and things like that, and we've also talked about how it depends on how big your plants are. Like I said, mine are just too big. I don't want to damage. I'm going to damage them by putting frost cloth or something on them. So usually this is how I would do it. I have the little metal hoops. I have a 30 by 100 foot piece of frost cloth, the size of my tunnel, essentially. And we just put these little hoops kind of down throughout, and we'll just pull it over the top. And depending on what thickness of the frost cloth or agribond stuff that you have, it can give you upwards of like 6-8 degrees increase of temperature just from holding in that soil heat. The other thing that I do, and people think this is so funny, my mom loves it, I put Christmas lights on my ranunculus. And it sounds silly, but those little bulbs, it has to be the like original, incandescent lights, put off just enough heat to keep your ground from freezing. And if you're growing ranunculus, they can handle cold on the top. I did actually find numbers for that. They can handle like down to 12 degrees on top, but it's when you freeze their roots is when you're gonna kill them off. They can't handle it down in the single digits. So that's when we put Christmas lights. And I put Christmas lights and the frost cloth over the top. And it really, the first year that I grew ranunculus, I was doing it in the little low tunnels. And that's when we had that 2 weeks of like 0 negative degrees. It didn't get above 20 degrees for like 2 weeks. I put Christmas lights in there and did the plastic, and the tunnels were like sweaty. It was amazing how warm it kept it in there. So yeah, it was a good electric bill, but it was worth it. Okay. Also something to consider when you're protecting your plants, what is your end goal for these plants? Is your goal just to keep them alive or to prevent damage completely? So most of these hardy annuals are going to be hard for you to kill off, even with this weather we have coming in. They're not going to die. they're just going to be a little stunted and won't bloom as early. So it's really just, are you wanting to keep them alive, or are you trying to have the earliest flowers you can? That's going to determine when and how you're going to cover your plants. I know a lot of people that cover inside their tunnel. They have a whole setup, and if it gets below 28 degrees, they cover inside the tunnel. So they have like agribon, thick agribon, like blankets on top inside a plastic tunnel. It's not worth it to me. Like, if this weather that's coming in, I will definitely do something, but for the most part, they can handle the low 20s, even getting in the teens some nights, as long as it's not prolonged for days and days. Okay, I think, okay, we talked about the varieties. One thing I do that's a little bit, I have a greenhouse over here that we keep minimally heated. This is a new experiment thing that I'm doing. And we already have ranunculus, we have tulips. As long as you can keep it above 40 degrees, you can have flowers all winter long. So that's something that maybe is to consider when you're building your tunnel. If you're interested in putting heat in it, I just wanted to put that little, I'm loving it. I love having flowers in this horrible weather. So, but yeah, this is my my first high tunnel, full for spring. And I think we're ready for questions. Anybody have questions? Yes.
Where do you sell your flowers?
Where do I sell my flowers? I sell to florists in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa area. So that's pretty much my only market now. If I have a lot of extra, I'll put together bouquets and send them with my cousin's market. But for the most part, I sell to florists there that often. To be honest, it's a little further. But I have a florist in that area that she will pretty much buy everything I have. And a lot of times she will come to me even and load her entire van up if she has a big event. And so it's worth it to me to make that trip, or I'll meet her or something. But Tulsa is at least twice a week where we go. If I don't, my mom works in Tulsa, so she's there every day. I'll load up her car. I'm doing this all by myself, so I can only keep up with so much. But yeah, I do like to go and deliver because I like to have that connection. But yes.
So I know you're a veterinarian, right?
Yeah.
So, because I'm thinking of starting this, of course, while I still am working full time.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do this full time, or how have you found a way to do this and work around another job?
So this is my full time now, besides my girls and the rest of our farm, which is like a whole nother job. But yeah, when I first started, I was still working as a veterinarian, and it's very hard. But when I first started, it was kind of like my retreat, my therapy,
Right.
because that's why I'm not a full-time veterinarian anymore. It's very hard. So this is what I did. I would come home and garden, and it was something that my daughter could do with me when she was born, and so I think I would say that like the biggest thing is planning and implementing systems that manage your time, because I can process thousands of snapdragons in a morning by myself, but I have a system of how I do it, how I cut them, even planting. It takes me, I time myself like a 128 tray, it takes me 4 minutes to plant by myself. If I have the bed prepped. So like you have to kind of figure out what works for you and how much time you have and how long it takes you to do things. I don't know if that was helpful, but there are definitely things that you can do to help make yourself more efficient. And I think I had a little bit of a leg up just because I worked for my cousin that did produce for, I guess that would have been like
at least 12 years, and efficiency was important. So some of those things, like how to plant quickly and things like that. So how long is this class? Is it? Okay. Okay, so we can keep doing.
How about like when you, on your Christmas lights, you put them underneath your frost blanket, and no problem with the frost blanket's not gonna catch on fire, they don't get that warm.
No. I have not, but usually my frost blanket is just a little bit above. I put those like it's kind of like a conduit wire. It's real thin wire, and you just kind of make a hoop. I've actually used metal hangers as well. So like if you have your beds of plants, you put one end of the wire and then you hoop it over, and it just gives you just enough to hold the frost cloth off of your plants and your Christmas lights.
I wonder if you hung your Christmas lights on your rafters or your
I
poles,
have.
I wonder if you think that would give any heat?
I don't know. I kind of thought that it would be too high. It might help though keep in general the whole tunnel warmer. That is a good thought. I have a lot of Christmas
Because
lights.
if
I
it's
should
just
try it for
LED
this
lights, it's
weekend.
probably not too expensive
No.
using them.
Yeah, I don't know that the LED creates a lot of heat though.
It wouldn't.
It doesn't? Yeah, so I don't know.
And
But-
that's what you said you use LEDs?
No, I use the incandescent.
Okay.
Isn't that what they're called?
Yes, they're
Okay,
called
that
incandescent.
sounded weird when I said it. I don't know. Okay, but yeah, and like I said, normally I would put frost cloth inside my tunnel, but my plants are just too big, like even over the hoops and everything. They're taller right now. I thought I was gonna have flowers for Valentine's, to be honest. It's been so warm.
Yeah,
Yes.
this warm weather.
Usually my foxgloves get about as tall as me. No, I'm gonna try this year a little bit because it's just such a big flower.
How long is stem? I mean, what's the longest stem?
Oh, they love them.
They
The
like
florists
60?
love them.
Really?
They really want a variety. They like the big ones for like events. So if they're doing like a very big install, in the florist class, I show some pictures of the florists that I sell to, just a little tiny bit. But some of the things they do is just amazing with the flowers that they get from me, and other farmers too. It's not just me, but yeah, they will tell me like, hey, this is what I'm gonna do with this. Is it tall enough? Or when I text them my availability, I'll say, hey, I have like 5 foot foxglove. Is this something you can use? I have no idea what I'm gonna do with it otherwise. That's why I'm gonna try to pinch some of them this year because I do usually get a second flush that is much more manageable. But yeah, they get really, even the delphinium gets so tall. Yeah. 6 inch. I don't know that I specifically said that, but pretty much everything I plant is 6 inch. 1 per square in the netting stuff, except snapdragons and lysiums I do closer. Snapdragons I do 3 per square.
No, but
Oh,
like in a bed.
in a bed I have six rows. So my netting is 3 foot wide, and so I do, yeah. It's a lot of plants in a very small amount of space. But that also gets you stem length. When they're crowded, they're reaching up. So,
So you talked about a lot of flowers and a small amount of space, and you gave us glimpses of what you could make. But would you share this, like from that 30 by 96? What is your income potential versus your expenses and labor?
okay, so I haven't done all my stuff for this year, but I do know that for the month of April, I sold almost $50,000 of flowers out of my 30 by 96 tunnel.
I'm thinking
But
3,000
did-
and 1,200 while you were saying, I was like, that's not a lot of
That's not
money,
profit.
but I was
That's
like,
not profit. So maybe
That's
yeah,
sales.
that's
That's sales.
total sales. I pretty much sell out every week somehow, and sometimes I truly feel like I have no idea where these flowers are gonna go, and I feel like somehow God just takes care of it, and that's what keeps me going because I love doing it, and it sometimes
even my husband will be like, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I don't know, but they'll find homes. But
So my question was kind of like the same as hers, but okay, so if you were to like add the time that you're investigating
yeah,
that,
so
so how
now
much
that I have
time-
like systems and things in place and I am pretty specific with what I grow, I've really narrowed into what colors to grow, what kind of things to grow. It really doesn't take me long to plant the whole tunnel. It would probably, if I could just do it and not have all my tiny helpers,
Yes.
it would probably take me maybe like a week to get everything planted, and that's not like full, like constant working even. I mean 4 or 5 days.
Twice a year.
Yeah.
So in the fall and in the
So,
spring.
and in the
like-
spring I don't really plant a lot anymore. That you can do, I've just from doing the math and stuff, since I just sell to florists, this is not market garden, it's very different. I don't grow any summer flowers anymore. I used to grow thousands of sunflowers, when I did market bouquets and things, and zinnias and marigolds and all those things. I plant like a few rows because I love them and I need flowers, but and I like to be able to have like our church women's group come out and do like a little U-pick and things like that. But that's all and I've just found that I don't have to work in the heat of the summer. But also with market, it still is, you can take a little break in the summer because it seems like the month of July, people are like on vacation, or even when I did my CSA, it's so slow. People forget to come get their bouquet, or they are on vacation, or things like that. So I know a lot of flower farmers that take the month of July off.
Well, if you're gonna do summer sales, at least major in like the funeral flowers.
Yes.
Gladiolas and stuff, because they are still dying all summer long. People are dying.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like, you kind of have to know who you're selling to. If you're selling to daily florists that do funerals, birthdays, anniversaries, things like that, you do. You want to grow sunflowers. You want to grow gladiolas. Some of my flowers do love zinnias, or florists love zinnias and marigolds and things like that. But I mostly sell to event florists, and even they're very slow in the summer. Like, or they're having solid white weddings that they still want ranunculus, and it's just not possible for us to have them in the summer here, or in Oklahoma. So, yes.
I was curious, are you gonna have a ridge vent in your?
I do not. I don't have, I know a lot of people will put, vents like down here. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
In the center.
Okay, at the center. Yeah.
Our tunnel is, it's basically it's pretty much cooler inside the tunnel with that shade cloth with the ridge vent because it doesn't.
I have not looked into that. For the most part, I'm done before it starts getting hot, but I guess I should look into that to see if it would help. Can you put shade cloth over the top of it, I guess?
Yeah.
Or, I'll have to look at that. For the most part, in the spring, we are so windy, and I don't know why, we just have the worst winds. And so there's so much airflow through there, it really doesn't get hot until summer and I'm done. But maybe it would prolong the ranunculus a tiny bit longer, I don't know, I'll have to look at that. Yeah.
I don't think it's strikingly cooler in there, but it's kind of a.
This new tunnel that I got from the marijuana farm is extremely tall. It's like, the peak is like 18 feet tall. And I was talking to a guy that builds tunnels, and he was like, you're gonna be able to control the temperature a lot better because you have so much space in there. So I'm excited to see how it works. I don't know how I'm gonna get shade cloth on it, but we'll give it a whirl.
Throw a rope over the top and then.
Yes, I just can't figure out what size I've got to figure out. But I like to measure.
How long have you had your white tunnel?
I've had, my first tunnel I got we set it up in December of 2022.
That's not long.
No,
Good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It
Yeah,
really
figured it out.
exploded
Yes.
my business, and we'll talk about it a little bit more in the florist class. But if you can really like niche down and find the people and figure out the flowers, then it really works. I really appreciate that this is like a godly group, and because I truly believe that God has truly blessed this, because I don't know how. I'm an extremely introverted person, and I actually never reached out to a florist. I've never reached out to a florist, but they find me, and somehow word of mouth spreads, and I really enjoy it. And now that I can do it full time and I can still do some veterinary medicine, the parts of it that I love, my horses and cows, and be with my girls and stuff. So it's been a blessing. And like I said, every spring I'm like, I have no idea where these are gonna go. Like, I plant all these white snapdragons, and I'm like, somebody please have a white wedding this next. But it seems I have, let's see, there's basically 4 event florists that I sell to. So for the most part, somebody's gonna have a white wedding that weekend. So I try to always have white. Peach is, you can get really tired of growing peach. And pink, but yeah.
Do you have a list of varieties that you grow? Of course, we're in Tennessee,
Uh-huh.
and you're in Oklahoma. And
I do have a list. Are gonna be your next class? Okay. The next one, I kind of show you my list and how I set up and how I send out availability. And it's not super specific, but I'm happy to like make it more specific and send it to you. But it looks kind of like a lot, but it's really not that much because I haven't taken all the summer stuff off of it really. But yeah, I do have a list, and I show you how to.
How close are you to a big city? I mean,
So Tulsa is our the main place that I sell to, and it's about 50 minutes to most of my florists there.
What's the population in Tulsa?
Anybody know? I'm trying to think of a city that would like compare to Tulsa.
I don't know. It's probably bigger than Little Rock. I know.
Yeah.
In what state?
Tulsa, I think, is even bigger than Oklahoma.
What
City.
state are you in?
Melbourne, Arkansas. I mean,
Yo,
we're
so
in
you're
a
in
little-
Arkansas. So it's
We're in a tiny
Yeah.
place. I mean, this is like
413,000 is the population of Tulsa. So it's probably bigger than Little Rock.
wow.
Yeah, it's a good size, and it's a very, I would say, a pretty diverse community, and we have a lot of art, so that also
Well, that
helps.
makes a
They're very, yeah, all of the florists that I sell to are very artistic. Like their style is very,
Oh, that's awesome.
it's very different than what you would get from 1-800-Flowers, or like, you order flowers for a funeral or something.
Right.
But I also do sell to some daily florists that really want to use local, and they always tell me that when they use my flowers in like a funeral arrangement or anything, they get more comments than anything because it's unique. It's different than just like carnations and roses. So a lot of them, if their customer is willing to trust them with that, basically, they like to use local.
Well, there's another aspect too, and that's when a florist is buying flowers, especially from overseas, they're covered with chemicals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good selling point for
Yep.
anyone here that's wanting to grow and send to a florist. Because a daily, like you're calling them a daily florist,
Mm-hmm.
they love to have something different come in,
Yeah.
no matter where it's coming from.
Yep.
I know an Amish lady who, when she can get somebody to deliver flowers for her,
Yeah.
I'll take them.
The hardest part, I will say, is getting them delivered, because I have a lot of smaller florists that I would love. I mean, I got to be friends with them when I initially started, and I would love to still deliver to them every week.
For your 2
But
days.
in the middle of spring, April, is often they're kind of slow for some reason, which I'm really busy with the others. So they know, they totally understand, and some of them will come out to me and get just like a bucket. They'll I'll let them come pick a bucket of flowers, whatever they want. Yes, sorry, I'm not.
Okay, I was just wondering, do you have disease issues in
the humidity is the biggest issue. I do get powdery mildew, especially towards the end of the season. I'm trying to think. Powdery mildew is really the only thing that I have issues with. I use drip tape for all my watering, and the main times that I've had powdery mildew, I grew phlox. There's an annual variety of phlox, which is like a major powdery mildew magnet, and it, even in the winter, had terrible powdery mildew, and that spring it was awful. I ripped it out, and I've not done it in the tunnel again but yeah, we have very good airflow because of all of our wind and stuff, so I don't struggle with that as much as I know Tennessee is. But there are, I'll have to look it up, but there is something that you can spray on your plants for powdery mildew that's like an organic certified, I can't remember what it's called.
What about, I'm not sure exactly what the disease, is it sclerotinia or something, where the plants just kind of melt down, like lettuce will do it, at least where we are.
Oh,
And I've had a problem with Canterbury bells doing that.
yes.
In the field, but in the tunnel, I've had pretty good success.
So I have a hard time with that in foxglove. I don't know why. They just will look really great and then they just die. So when I had a hard time with that, I started soaking them. I've talked too much today, I forgot all my words. What is it? It's like a probiotic sort of situation that you pour over them.
Is it root shield?
Yes, root shield. And it has like some kind of bacillus type stuff in it.
Saccharomyces.
Yes,
Yeah.
a word that I
It's
don't
got
know.
a lot of stuff that bites off.
But it basically protects the roots, and it's basically like protecting them with the healthy bacteria. Have you tried that?
Well, we've used stuff like that, other stuff on the farm, not on the flowers.
Yeah, so I had a really hard time. I grow potted mountains as well, and I have a terrible time with the plants will look really great, and then all of a sudden it starts getting hot in July. It's always when I go to camp meeting, and they just die. So I started treating them with root shield, and I don't have as much loss. So I think, and I did this year, I treated all my foxglove, and I haven't had near the same issue. So I don't know if it's something like that, but
Fusarium that's killing
yeah,
them.
yeah,
will-
fusarium,
And botrytis.
yeah. Sorry, cannot think of all the, I should have wrote all these things down. Normally I'm like a book of, yes.
Comment, if anybody here lives in a high snow area, we built a 60 by 30 high tunnel, and you can, for a little bit more money, you can build trusses.
Uh-huh.
Instead of just a big open space there, you can
Yeah.
actually have trusses. Because
That's-
we grow tomatoes and
Uh-huh.
everything's hanging from those trusses anyway, so it's a lot stronger. And then we double layer and inflate it,
Okay.
and the snow will build up on there, maybe about 6 inches, and then just slide off.
Huh.
It's like the metal roof syndrome, you know?
Uh-huh.
It builds up to the point where it's heavy, and then it just slides off.
I have the trusses. That new tunnel I built came with them, and we've been kind of on the fence about putting because it's so solid already. But yeah, that is a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. Anything else? I think we're supposed to take a little.
Another thing you could do, instead of the trusses, is just run a wire across so that thing doesn't squat out.
Uh-huh.
The
Oh
wire-
yeah, to kind of give
Just
it.
a wire across
Uh-huh.
will keep it from,
Uh-huh.
going out like
All
that.
things we need to consider over the next few days.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Yes, I have considered the double layer of plastic. I inflate my greenhouse, the heated one, just so I use that for insulation a little bit. But okay, well let's take a little break and we'll talk about selling to florists. What time is the next one supposed to be? 4? Okay, so we got 10 minutes.